Good morning and welcome to Shamanic Sundays.
Oh,
I'm here with my dad, of course, and today we're also absolutely thrilled to be welcoming our special guest, Pilar Lyutfalieva. And I also have to make sure I pronounce that right because I feel like no matter how many times I say it.
Totally right.
So if you want to correct me right off the bat, go for it.
You said it just slower.
Okay.
Lyutfalieva. You said it perfect.
Okay.
it's a beautiful flowing.
Yes.
The energy of it is just such a flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us, and we will get into a little bit more about how we know you as we go through the morning. But I want to introduce Pilar to the rest of you. Thank you for joining us here today too, our Shamanic Sundays community. So grateful for you showing up each week and listening and sharing as the schedule works for you. So Pilar is a performance coach and mentor. She has committed most of her almost 20-year career to focused mentorship with entrepreneurs, decision makers, creative leadership, managers, high-performing individuals, and helping all of them and all of us to unlock understanding and focus in on the self-discovery journey. I have to add, she is also a mom of 3, a dear spiritual sister of mine, and an alumna of the Vision Quest of 2023.
Yes.
So,
Which coincidentally, we found out later I was pregnant while I was on that Vision Quest.
You got to watch those Vision Quests.
Number 3 was germinating in there out
That's
on
a
Quest.
lot of power.
Yeah. Good morning, relatives. So we like to start off with a prayer of gratitude. If you would lead us in that, please, Dad.
Yes, I have gratitude to be here alive, and that we're together and we're all alive, and everybody listening to us and all people that are alive, all beings. Thank you to you, Great Spirit, Great Mystery, for giving this breath of life, and to the angels of protection. Gratitude to our ancestors and all your work to nurture life, protect life, pass it on down the line for us to have our turn. And gratitude to the ancestor spirits of the land we're living on. We remember you here. We honor you here. And thank you for our families and our communities and the challenges of our lives that give us opportunity to wake up, to see where we've fallen asleep into ignorance and forgotten the truth of how we're sacred, worthy, luminous beings through your grace of love that is forgiving, for the healing of the sacred hoop. So may our joining today help us with our special guest, and great to see you, Pilar, and your family. Blessings to your family and all our families, and with prayers for healing of the sacred hoop to polish up our stardust so we can show up and do our part, help heal the sacred hoop. May it be so.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you. And thank you again, everyone joining us this morning, and Pilar, for showing up. I love how you were willing to jump in with us, and
Absolutely.
Scary.
It's always scary to jump in with us. That's for sure. But
I love swimming with danger. It's an adventure.
Yes, it is. That's for sure. So we asked Pilar to join us this week because we realized we know so many incredible people who are out there as teachers doing a form of healing work, and you are definitely one of those that I love so much. And when we talk about why we do this Shamanic Sundays, it's really about bringing shamanic principles into practical application. And I think you do that very beautifully in how you walk your path. You have a very strong sense of spirituality and what that means in your life. And so that's why we have you here, to just bring another voice in. And we're going to start doing this a little more often. So thank you for being one of our first guests in this capacity. And
I love it. I just feel so blessed to be here.
Yay. And we will share Pilar's contact information also in the show notes and in the chat, so you can follow up with her directly too if you would like. So the question of the week is on rediscovering, uncovering your authentic self. We got a question from Sean on that. So I was thinking about what that means to me, like my authentic self, and came to me as that growing up, you don't really think about it, right? You just show up as you are. And then you start putting on different costumes for different people and purposes in your life. And as a former dancer, I definitely learned how to do that, how to play different characters. And I feel like it was in my probably when I became a mom that I really started going, well, wait, am I all of those parts, or what is my authentic self? And can one person really wear that many hats and be authentic? And I think, yes, that was my discovery, that all of these parts of me are part of me. But sometimes I think fear stops us from letting our authentic self come through. So I'm gonna ask you guys some questions about that. But first, I wanted to share a really interesting report I came across from the McCann Global Survey that came out in early 2020 about what motivates people the most, and it was for 16 to 30-year-olds. And number 3 was community, so connecting, which is what we're all doing here today. So thank you, community, relatives. Number 2 was justice. So that's personal justice, like feeling like I am being treated justly. And then also, from a big picture, justice, racial justice, social justice, environmental justice. But the number one thing was authenticity. So 16 to 30-year-olds reporting in 2020 that the number one thing that motivates them is authenticity. And I thought, well, of course that makes sense. They're the first, generation of digital natives, right? Growing up with social media and screens at their fingertips. And then now with AI becoming even more of a reality in all of or more of a presence in all of our life experiences, lived experience and authentic connection and authenticity, I think, is just becoming more and more important. So for me, I would say that authenticity is allowing all of the parts of me to be present in any given situation, and knowing, of course, when it's appropriate to let different parts through stronger than others, but to know that I'm in my heart bringing all parts of me with me. So I'd love to know what authenticity means to each of you. And Pilar, let's start with you.
Sure. Yeah. I love well, first I love the framing of the question. I love that it's what was it? It was like rediscover or like refined, or I forgot what the
Rediscovering,
word was.
uncovering. Yeah.
Uncovering, yeah, or I love that frame of the question, because it's not just how do I be authentic, but I think it's in and of itself, the question is really authentic, because I think we're always going through a cycle of rediscovery. I think, and to your point, oh, it looks like we lost them for a second. Oh,
No,
and they're back.
I was just spotlighting you.
Oh, thank you. I was like, where'd they go? My authentic reaction. Um,
That's
and
kind.
yeah, I love that your example of just talking about fear. And I think that that's when we know that we're going through a new cycle. I think that's when we know we're going through a rediscovery process, is when there is a sense of fear. I love the sentiment that, what you're afraid of, or if you're scared, do it anyway. And you feel drawn to it, but you're scared, right? Obviously, there's exceptions to that rule, and everyone needs to self advise. But
Mhm.
just that sentiment of, what courage is,
Yeah,
essentially being scared and doing it anyway.
yeah.
Um, and I love, I think that that's, well, touching back on having 3 kids, I think that that's the biggest lesson that we try to teach here in the house, and I think it's the foundation for, a lot, including and especially this this brushstroke of authenticity, right? Trying to make sure that we're painting ourselves and who we want to be, with a sense of self-awareness, and there's just naturally fear in that, right? There's naturally gonna be some self-doubt. Um, Personally, I'm always going through I'm always going through a sense of rediscovery, even in my spirituality. I think, especially in my spirituality, I'm always going through, how do I do this in the most authentic way? How do I, serve? How do I seek? How do I listen in a way that is not performative, especially when spirituality is something that is both intrinsic and extrinsic, by virtue of, our seeking. Who are we looking to? Who are we listening to? Who says what's right? Who says what's wrong? And so I feel like spirituality and is human. You can't take the human out of spirituality, and that's going to require cycles. And I think that if you are going through a cycle, if you are going through a rediscovery, that's literally, I would say, you're automatically you're being authentic.
Mm.
You're being self-aware that there is a change, there is a shift, and you're simply doing your best to listen to that and to see where it takes you. And sometimes we don't know how to do that. But there's an internal struggle. And by virtue of being human, that friction is going to cause heat, it's going to cause energy, and it's going to move us in some way. And we're going to have choices, that we're going to take. And I think that any choice we decide to take is going to be the most authentic version of ourselves that we can come up with in that moment. And, that requires also, just some sort of trust in yourself that you are doing your best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I love how you brought in the extrinsic and intrinsic seeking, right? There's the
Mhm.
what we're doing on the outside and how we're processing. Can you speak to that for a second, Dad?
So first of all, I enjoyed hearing both of you guys talk, and I could just listen to you for a long time, both of you, without feeling the need, an authentic need for me to say anything. So, but having been put on the spot here, let me just listen. Authenticity.
Yeah. What is that? What is that? What does authenticity mean to you?
Being real about the truth of what I'm experiencing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that involves listening. We're all multidimensional beings, so listening with the fullness of our multidimensionality capacities for experience. So authenticity is, ever since I was a little boy, it's been a prime value in my life. I'm not interested in putting energy into that which is not true, which is not authentic, which is not real in the moment, because the juice of life is with the reality of what we're experiencing in the moment. This is the only time we can experience whatever we want to experience and co-create with spirit as our experience. And I'm reminded of Arnie Mindel's notion of deep democracy in terms of healing within the individual, healing within groups that are in conflict. That all the voices need to be heard. If you want to listen for guidance with an intention to create a win-win for all who are involved, then you have to listen to all the voices, not just the pleasant voices that ego feels comfortable with or likes or gets stroked by, but to listen to all the voices of the shadow, of the oppressed, of the minority, of the other, whatever it is within ourselves, within the circle of relationships with all our relations. And if we leave out one voice, whatever solution we come up with, that unheard voice that didn't get an opportunity to express itself is going to sink the whole boat. So if we want to create win-win relationships, peaceful, harmonious, blossoming, fullest potential relationships within ourselves, all aspects of ourselves, with it, and in all our relations and in the world, we have to listen to all the voices. We have to listen to the voices of what drives Hamas to do the horrific attack it did. what drives a Netanyahu to do the horrific things he's perpetuating, and all around the world, whoever's committing violence. And I think the original violence is something that we all have to deal with the ignorance of separating our awareness from the great mystery, the creative wisdom, power of the universe, the God, the goddess, whatever, that we're in and is in us, and is the essence of our being, that existed before our energy came into these bodies for our life walk, and exists after the body, the physical container of that spirit, that energy, finishes this life walk. It merges back into the oneness and never really left on the deepest level of who we are. So the deepest authenticity brings us to the seeking of the deepest authenticity, is seeking for our integrity and the essence of who and what we really are underneath the persona of personality and ego identity, and with physical body and its stories. So hopefully the sharing that we do and comes through all of us, and this time together, helps us polish up our stardust to recognize and empower us to embrace the wholeness of our holiness, the holiness of our wholeness, all aspects of our being, listen to all the voices and how to bring them all into harmonious relationship to open the doorway to bring through fullest blossoming, greatest good, the deepest authenticity of who and what we are, which is love. It's forgiving. So that's what comes up for me.
Thank you.
Right.
So what I hear, really the key point that you're sharing is that our first kind of wound that leads to burying our authentic self is forgetting our interconnection with each other, with the whole web of life. That slice, that cut, that wound in the Garden of Eden, the web of life of all of us,
in our minds,
in our minds and our hearts, of feeling like we're separate. That's really the beginning of feeling disconnected from your authentic self,
which is where the fear comes from, and then the violence comes from that,
Mm-hmm.
perpetuated on the other.
Yeah. So if we go back to then, why we're here today, and using shamanic principles in daily living, what are some things that come to mind for each of you of what we can do to start to heal that sense of disconnection from our each other and from our different parts of ourselves? And I immediately just go back to breath. That's always, so that's why we're here, how we're here. That breath, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because while you were talking, Tom, it reminded me of this great book. It's called Difficult Conversations. It's actually, it's kind of it's really, really it's sort of widely acclaimed. It's even been handed out at the UN. It's a book that, people reference time and time over, how to have difficult conversations and where do difficult conversations come from? Why do they start? Right. And I almost think of, that difficult conversation with yourself, and one of the things I love about just sort of picking out one thing is that there will be a difficult conversation when there are conflicting perspectives. So literally, we're telling different stories. And I think that what's so beautiful about the human experience is that, for better or worse, there is always going to be multiple truths. And that's why it's so important for us to listen, understand, accept beyond ourselves, right? Accept that there is existence beyond just us, that it's not just about what we believe. It's not just about what we want, what we think is right. And that's why in so many religions that have this sort of non-duality is that there's no right or wrong. And that's because it's impossible. It's impossible to have one right and it's impossible to have one wrong. And so just thinking about like, how do, how do I kind of resolve that with myself is there's definitely breath. There's silence behind the noise, that I'm trying to.
How do you find that with 3 kids?
Amen. So sometimes it's very if for those who like astrology, it's very Libra energy, finding peace in the chaos, whether you're creating it or you're just being a witness to it. But it's very much, how do you find peace in chaos? And I
Yeah,
think that, being a parent is a perfect example of that.
yeah.
And
Because the
um,
chaos can be not just the 3 kids, it can be 3 news channels, it can be 3 colleagues, it can be 3
exactly. It can be
people
so many
outside your
things.
door, 3 voices in your head, right? It's
Totally. It
yeah,
can be family. It can be something in your immediate environment. It can be in your immediate network. It can be in a side network, right? It could be work. It could also be your sociological ecosystem, which is like the media, right? There's so many things that are going to try to conflict with you. And it is very hard if you don't have an anchor point within yourself, right? It's very hard, and you can get kind of picked up and carried away, and that creates a lot of anxiety. I think that's just naturally because of the world we live in now, talking about, the digital age and choice. I mean, there's so many choices now. We're experiencing choice paralysis. And
mhm.
so you're, knowing where you're when you're in a state of paralysis and when you're in a state of um intentional silence, intentional, I'm going to be a witness to the chaos and I will not dip my hand into it, but I'm going to be a witness to it. And knowing that you can do that, you're allowed to. Just talking about sort of events and stories. We don't all need to have an opinion on everyone else's stories. And I think that that can create a lot of dysfunction within ourselves when we try to make other people's stories our stories. What
I love
creates,
that. Can I just
yeah,
repeat that? That we don't have to have an opinion on other people's stories. I love that.
yeah.
Yeah.
The most powerful thing is to be the witness. That is l- hands down, spiritually, on the physical plane, whatever it is, the most powerful thing is to be the witness. And that's not to say that
Can I
speaking
get
is
me a
important.
witness? Can I get me a witness?
Can I get an amen?
Bring in some
Exactly.
hip hop in there, Pop. Nice job.
Literally. And exactly. That's exactly it. That's why that's so powerful. Can I get a witness? Right? Because being able to see from a place of being the witness and not being the peanut gallery, right? Two very different things. Um, Very powerful. I equate it to anecdotally and on a very micro level, and very like non-spiritual level, but everything's a little spiritual. I have a very strong belief, and obviously we all have different belief systems that rule our lives, but I have a beautiful belief system that in anytime I have a problem, literally technical, um, I can't find a hole in the wall, whatever it is. Anytime I have a problem that for some reason I cannot troubleshoot and I'm having issues with, as soon as I ask somebody for help or somebody comes over or whatever, it immediately starts working immediately. And it's that age old, like stupid feeling where it's like, oh my God, literally, I swear it wasn't working a second ago. Right. I have a belief system that as soon as something is witnessed, it, the solution and the pathway just, it illuminates,
Mm.
it
That's
becomes
so
present
interesting.
for us.
Yeah, because if you
Yeah.
go back to nature's wisdom and shamanic principles, it's very about witness to just what's real, right? Like
Mhm.
that whatever tool you're using to get out of the fuzz, the illusions, it just brings you back to what's real. So you're witnessing what's real.
Mhm.
And healing comes from joining with the truth of what is, which implies witnessing the truth of what is, a willingness and openness and receptivity and presence to be present to your awareness of what's happening, witnessing. And then there's information there. Yeah. And when we open to that information, witness it, see it, then it can guide us to how to create a response to whatever that information is bringing in the situation that opens the doorway to bring through the resolution of the quote unquote problem.
Yeah.
And then there's also that sense of feeling unsettled. I want to give voice to those situations and those experiences where it's not your story, but it affects you. It moves you, and it sort of almost dislocates you. There's this sense of like, what does this mean for me? Right? Why does this bring up feelings in me? And I think that's the key, is that intrinsic seeking now, right? Why does this bring up feelings in me? And there can be very wonderfully practical reasons for that. Our own personal experiences can also be a spiritual calling, can be something that is simply, you see that truth in its divinity, right? But that's part of the journey. That's that's just paying homage to the cycle, like you say, the hoop, right? It's ever turning, and it's ever evolving, and part of being human, which is just, a roller coaster ride within a roller coaster ride. That's part of enjoying it, is being like, yeah, this is going to be a wild ride, and to be ready for it, because within all of that, there are beautiful moments and lessons for rediscovering who you are and what you're made of.
Yeah. It's like our whole journey of being alive is is going through all these different processes and journeys that you allude to, these different chapters, these different quests to ultimately get back to where we started, which is remembering our sacred self, our authentic self, right?
Yeah.
I think, Dad, one of the things that people so appreciate about you as a teacher, guide, spiritual leader, shaman, teacher, spiritual medicine teacher, is your authenticity. Like I'll just speak for myself. I've met some people who, they've got on all the right paraphernalia. They've got on all the right feathers and necklaces and all that.
I'm trying.
And sometimes, that those can be powerful tools. I don't mean to denigrate that, but like, it's like when you start believing the story about yourself and the ego takes over, as opposed to just, letting spirit move through you. And you are so humble and so good at just always going back to like letting spirit move through you. And I just realized, Pilar, I should share with you and for folks who are joining us for the first time, why my dad has his eyes closed. He has some stuff going on with his eyes this era of his life. And so sometimes on screen, they get tired and a little sore. So he's definitely present here for all of you and us, but just, yeah. So we do, as we do each week with Shamanic Sundays, a visualization around the theme of the week. So Dad, if you could lead us in a visualization of, this would be a very like intrinsic experience of when we bump up against extrinsic things that, as you mentioned, Pilar, it might be a family member, a colleague, whatever's the kids, whatever's happening out there that wants to separate us from our authentic self. So if you could lead us in a little visualization around that, that'd be great.
It would be great. I don't know if I can do it, but let's find out.
See. Let's give it a try.
Just open up and so let me see first if I understand what you're asking. So when fear comes up to block our authenticity, trying to block an expression of our authenticity in the moment, how to work with that.
Yeah. I think, are we all agreeing that oftentimes it is fear that stops us from being our authentic self? Like fear, what do they think? I can't do all that. There's too much on my plate. If I don't do it that way, I won't be loved. Right.
Yeah.
So many of the things that stop us from being our authentic self, they'll think I'm weird, which right now in our political sphere, I don't know, weird is good. And many, it's like, how weird are you? Are you good weird? Are you bad weird?
Yeah.
But the fear of not being accepted by somebody or something or ourselves is what stops us. Are we all in agreement on that? And do y'all out there feel that too? Guessing you do. So yeah, the visualization of how to meet fear that keeps us away from our authentic self and move through it so we can rediscover, uncover, refine our authentic self.
So an invitation to journey within, bring our awareness down into the inner theater, so to speak, our looks within place. Just taking a moment or so to notice what is entailed in bringing your awareness inside. That's noticing that. Closing the eyes, of course, helps because it reduces, if not eliminates, the input from visual sensing. And with the gift of our awareness, then we can pay attention to what's taking place inside as compared to the externals. And notice, however we notice, the gift of being breathed by the creative power of the universe. Obviously wants us here, believes in us because it's given us the life force flowing into us. And because of the wisdom design of billions of years of evolution, there's an out-breath leaving, carrying away energy that's no longer needed. And Pilar, as you spoke eloquently about the cycles, the great cycles of being breathed in, consequence of what takes place inside of us when that breath of life comes in, and then the consequence of releasing, letting go, energy, whatever level, thought, feeling, sensation, it doesn't serve our well-being in the moment. In and out, and the pause between the changing of the tides. And with this breath that comes into us in this moment, only one at a time, all we ever have to deal with in being alive is one breath at a time. And when the next breath leaves, there's no guarantee there'll be another breath. We never know when the breath leaving might be our last breath. And so the truth is, whatever I'm doing right now could be the last thing I do. And in terms of authenticity, if I really take hold in my consciousness and my being the truth that what I'm doing right now could be the last act that I do in this life. And if I'm feeling something from my authentic being that wants to be expressed, not everything that we feel needs to be expressed, but if there's something that's authentically I'm experiencing in the moment that wants to express itself in some way, and out of fear about how it's going to be responded to or how I'm going to be responded to, I shut that down. The truth is, if that's my last act, then I go out, I physically die, repressing, constricting out of fear, my potential for being alive in the moment. And if I keep doing that, of course, and I get more breaths, that creates a state of intense and great suffering because we're not showing up to live the authenticity and the fullness and creativity and beauty and power of who we are and what we are and why we're here. So it's helpful to me as a shamanic understanding is this medicine of death that can take us anytime it wants to, doesn't need our permission, can come forward in any moment. And the fact that I'm alive right now means it's not happening right now. And so what do I want to create? What experience do I want to co-create with spirit of what I want to experience in this moment? So to befriend our mortality and the fact that whatever we're doing right now could be our last act is I don't want to spend it being inauthentic, but dishonoring what's true inside of me. I want to show up in fullness and wholeness and the beautiful holiness of my wholeness and what I'm authentically feeling and listening to how it wants to be expressed, to be honored, how its voice wants to come forth in some way. Sometimes it'll be out loud, sometimes it'll be in silence and energy. But I don't want to take a big foot, and stomp my authenticity because of fear. I don't want to give my power to my fear. So fears come up all the time for me. I got to deal with it a million times a day. Just notice it, witness it. Don't make a conscious decision. This is going to be my last act. Do I want to give my power to shut myself down and that's the way I go out? No. I want to give myself permission to my humanness to experience fear and anxiety and lack of confidence and insecurity, whatever it is, human stuff. And remember, that's not who I am. It's what my awareness is experiencing in the moment, but it's not who I am. And this moment is my time of sacred living, the fullness, authentic integrity, beauty, and wisdom of what I'm experiencing in the moment, and listening for wisdom guidance about how to express it in a way that opens doorways to bring through fullest blossoming, greatest good, with gratitude for this breath of life and being alive in the moment and the ability to make a conscious choice about all of this that we're talking about when we choose to be present and listen for, honor, empower, polish up the stardust of our spiritual authenticity, which is love. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
That is beautiful as always. Thank you. And it also made me think something you said at the beginning around when we're being our authentic self, like not just kind of blurting out what's ever in our mind, right? Like, do we have to tell everybody everything we're thinking in order to be our authentic self? And how might that actually end up hurting us and each other? So I'm wondering if you guys could speak for a minute about how to really listen to what is the right speaking and sharing from authentic self, and when authentic self can also include not just bleh, right? Like having boundaries is helpful in life, right? For both the people we're in relationship with and our own relationship with ourselves. So so the dance of boundaries and authentic self.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like, the voice is a tool and everyone has different personalities. And as someone who has gone through a lot of evolution in myself in terms of being, a wild teenager, single mom, a high performer, I was an alcoholic. There's so many cycles and evolutions that I've gone through that I look at myself now and I say, wow, it took a while for me to accept who I was and to also appreciate the mess, and to say yes to the mess. And I think that power of actually to something that Tom, you kept saying that I love the word death. I love death. I think death is a beautiful thing. And I think that if there is no death, there is no life. And if there wasn't death, there wouldn't be appreciation for life in the meantime. And death is just another word for the cycle, right? And I think it's only through time and experience that we find out and we realize like what makes sense for me. And for me personally, even just speaking anecdotally about death, um, my life has always been an interesting amalgamation of literal death and metaphoric death. And one thing recently that has come back into my life is daily prayer, and not just daily, just once a day. I do it in the morning and I do it in the evening. And something I haven't done in a while. And I love the concept that spirituality is human, right? Our own spirituality goes through cycles. And I had this beautiful prayer that I do. And speaking of, when to speak or when to share, I feel like this is a perfect example of like, I want to share this prayer, right? I want to share this prayer with everyone.
Bring it on.
Yeah. And it's to all of these perfect points in this theme that we're talking about in the morning or at night, depending on how I'm feeling. But there's essentially two prayers, and sometimes they mix. But one is for all that I am, for all that I'm meant to be, for everything I'm willing to give, and everything I'm willing to receive. In the highest and best way. Thank you. Thank you. And it's a way of remembering that life, sometimes we think of giving and we think of receiving. We think of sacrifice. We think of, well, I don't want to lose because I might lose something. But we also have to remember that loss and death also means receiving, right? Clearing ourselves out, emptying ourselves out, or opening up a space so that we're open to receive is also important, right? And so I do that mostly in the morning to basically say, I'm ready, right? Like I'm clearing myself out. And then at the end of the day, right? The death of the day, that day is no longer going to exist anymore. I say, for my thoughts that no longer define me, for my feelings that no longer have a grip on me, and for everything I've created that no longer belongs to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a way of me basically saying, I'm ready to say goodbye to today and everything attached to today, because I have to be open and ready for tomorrow,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's something, again, I went through a dry spell. I wasn't praying. I wasn't really doing anything with my altar, and that's fine, right? I have a lot of people who sometimes ask me like, is this because I'm not praying? Is this because, right? And it's like sometimes we have to go through that cycle. Same as sometimes we have to have diarrhea of the mouth and then realize that was not the way to go. you know, we just have to go through the cycle, and the truth will always be there for us in the end, right? On the other side of it. But we have to go through the journey. We have to walk through it. We have to walk through death's door to see what life lies for us on the other side.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to go back also to what you were saying about the giving and receiving, and that there was like a hint of that feeling like it could be painful, right? And really, if you just think of it as it's two sides of the coin, it's part of the same flow, right? You can't receive a breath
right
without letting go of the breath. You can't receive love without giving love. You can't be present without being present.
Yeah, totally. Without saying goodbye to the moment before.
Yeah. So you're welcoming your different selves, breathing them in, being present. We have gone over time, and I think that's okay since there was 3 of us, and no one's going to fire us. But if anybody has to jump off, we
make the rules.
We each make the rules for ourselves, right? How we show up. Dad, did anything that Pilar was sharing bring up anything else you want to bring out about authentic self?
And our authentic self is beautiful.
Mm.
It's beautiful beyond what we can even imagine. So make a good home for the truth of your authentic self, because you are, we are beautiful.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Make
That
a
just made me
beautiful
think
home
of,
for that. That's
yeah, make
beautiful.
a beautiful home. I had a friend who's a bit older than me, and she once said about relationships that she knew that the man she married was the right person because she knew that if he gave him an egg to hold, he would hold it and he would do everything in his power not to drop that egg. He would make a beautiful home for that egg.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that sweet? It just made me think of that. So I feel like I want to wish each of you that if you think of your authentic self as this egg about to come to life, grow, blossom, your authentic self is an egg, and I'm handing it back to you for the coming week.
Oh, thank you.
And hold it because it's beautiful. Hold it with
Wow.
love and tenderness, and feel the strength and the wisdom and beauty and everything in there. So
Beautiful.
thank you.
Brios, thank you.
Anything else you want to add? I want to make sure everybody knows that I put the Pilar's contact information in the chat. I'll also include that in the show notes. And please make sure to check out her work, and also please like, subscribe, follow, comment on our work here with Shamanic Sundays and NatureWise. It helps support the work that we're all doing. And yes, sir.
Do you have your information for people to contact you in there too?
I do, in the show notes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Good.
Yeah.
Pilar, great to see you. Thank you.
So
Love
good
to
to
your
see
family.
You too.
Yeah,
Everybody. Oh,
We'll be in the physical realm with each other soon.
we will. And thank you all again for being here and sharing this time with us and your journey. And we'll see you again next week.
Thanks,
Oh.
everyone.
Bye.
Have a
Bye.
blessed week.
Bye.
Oh.